Hey, welcome back to Coin Chronicles. This is Bryce. I hope you're doing well. Today we will take a look at the history of the 1970s, from the year 1970 to 1979, and we will look at some coins from each year. First, we will cover the history of the year 1970. In the year 1970, NASA's Explorer 1, the first American satellite, re-enters Earth's atmosphere after 12 years in orbit. The 1970 United States Census records 203,392,031 residents on April 1st, 1970. President Richard Nixon signs the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act into law, banning cigarette television advertisements in the United States, starting January 1st, 1971. Apollo 13 is launched toward the moon. An oxygen tank in the spacecraft explodes, forcing the crew to abort the mission and return in 4 days as they splash down safely into the Pacific. In Washington, D.C., 100,000 people demonstrate against the Vietnam War, while President Nixon shows up to meet with them. 4 students at Kent State University in Ohio are killed, and 9 are injured by Ohio State National Guard at a protest against the Cambodian incursion. An F5 tornado hits downtown Lubbock, Texas, and 28 people are killed. President Nixon signs the Voting Rights Act amendments of 1970 to lower the voting age to 18. The automobiles Gremlin, Chevrolet Vega, and the Ford Pinto are introduced. President Nixon announces that the United States will withdraw 40,000 more troops before Christmas. On October 26th, Gary Gabelich drives the rocket-powered Blue Flame to a land speed record of 622.407 miles per hour. The North Tower of the World Trade Center becomes the tallest building in the world at 1,368 feet. On December 1st, the Environmental Protection Agency begins operation, and on December 29th, Nixon signs OSHA into law. And the Pocket Calculator, Irish Spring, Otter Pops, Slush Puppy, Top Ramen, and the Videosphere are invented, and the songs Bridge Over Troubled Water, Make It With You, Easy Come, Easy Go, They Long to Be Close to You, Everything is Beautiful, Let It Be, Snowbird, We've Only Just Begun, It's a Shame, Oh Child, ABC, and I'll Be There are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1970's Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1970's Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1970's Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1970's Washington Quarter proof. Now let's take a look at the 1970's Kennedy half-dollar proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1970's Kennedy half-dollar proof. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1971. In the year 1971, the famous television sitcom All in the Family, starring Carol O'Connor as Archie Bunker, premieres on CBS. The 6.5 to 6.7 earthquake hits the greater Los Angeles area, killing 58 to 65 people and injuring 200 to 2,000. Apollo 14 returns to Earth after the third crewed moon landing. The Mississippi Delta tornado outbreak leaves 123 dead and over 1,592 injured. Amtrak began intercity rail passenger services in the United States. A mid-air collision between Hughes Airwest 706 Douglas DC-9 jetliner and a U.S. Marine Corps McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom jet fighter near the town of Duarte, California, kills 50 people. The unemployment rate peaks at 6.1% in August of 1971. President Nixon announces that the United States will no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed value. An Alaska Airlines flight Boeing 727 crashes into the side of a mountain near Juneau, Alaska, killing 111 people. The total number of American troops in Vietnam drops to a record low of 196,700, which is the lowest since 1966. In Operation Grommet, the U.S. tests a thermonuclear warhead at Amchitka Island in Alaska, which at 5 megatons, it is the largest U.S. underground detonation. During a thunderstorm over Washington, a man calling himself D.B. Cooper parachutes from a Northwest Orient Airlines Boeing 727 plane he hijacked with $200,000 in ransom money, disappears, never to be seen again. And the Intel 4004 microprocessor, the first space station Salyut 1, first floppy disk and disk drive, and quarter pounder are invented, and the songs Take Me Home Country Roads, If, Never Can Say Goodbye, The Last Farewell, Joy to the World, It's Too Late, Rainy Days and Mondays, I Am, I Said, Here Comes That Rainy Day Feeling Again, and You've Got a Friend is released. Now we'll take a look at the 1971 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1971 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1971 S. Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1971 S. Washington Quarter proof. Now we will take a look at the 1971 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1971 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will take a look at the 1971 S. Eisenhower dollar proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1971 S. Eisenhower dollar proof. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1972. In the year 1972, President Nixon orders the development of a space shuttle program. A coal sludge spill kills 125 people in Buffalo Creek, West Virginia. The U.S. and the Soviet Union joined 70 nations in signing the Biological Weapons Convention to ban biological warfare. A fire in the Sunshine Mine in northern Idaho kills 91 people. The Watergate first and second break-in attempts fail. The Black Hills flood kills 238 people in South Dakota, and Hurricane Agnes kills 117 people on the East Coast. 5 White House operatives are arrested for burglarizing Democratic National Committee offices. President Nixon and his chief of staff are taped talking about using the CIA to obstruct the FBI's investigation of the Watergate break-ins. Democrat Senator George McGovern is nominated for president, and President Nixon is re-nominated for the upcoming election. A massive solar flare knocks out cable lines in the U.S., and a brilliant daytime meteor skips off the atmosphere, visible over the western U.S. and Canada, only 35 miles within the Earth's surface. President Nixon approves legislation to increase Social Security spending by $5.3 billion. The accidental tripping of a signal at 27th Street Station in Chicago causes an IC electric express train to telescope another, killing 45 and injuring over 300 people. In the 1972 presidential election, President Nixon defeats Senator George McGovern in a landslide. Atari Inc. kicks off the first generation of video games with the release of their arcade version of Pong. The Environmental Protection Agency bans the use of the pesticide DDT. And computed tomography, CT imaging, Ethernet, Pong, the McMuffin, Mr. Coffee, stovetop stuffing, shoe goo, and Snapple are invented, and the songs Alone Again, Naturally, Everything I Own, Betcha by Golly Wow, Everybody Plays the Fool, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, Lean on Me, Oh Girl, Oh Babe, What Would You Say, A Horse with No Name, City of New Orleans, Rocket Man, and Saturday in the Park are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1972 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1972 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1972 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1972 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1972 Kennedy Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1972 Kennedy Half Dollar. Now we will take a look at the 1972 D. Eisenhower Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1972 D. Eisenhower Dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1973. In the year 1973, U.S. President Richard Nixon and Vice President Spiro Agnew are sworn in for their second term. In the Roe v. Wade case, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned state bans on abortion. President Nixon announces that a peace accord has been reached in Vietnam. The United States dollar is devalued by 10%, as the first American prisoners of war are released from Vietnam. Federal Express, FedEx, officially begins operations, with the launch of 14 small aircraft. The Sears Tower in Chicago is finished, becoming the tallest building in the world until 1998. On May 14th, Skylab, the United States' first space station, is launched. Henry Kissinger, United States National Security Advisor, starts his term as United States Secretary of State. In Orlando, Florida, President Nixon tells 400 Associated Press managing editors, "I'm not a crook." Vice President Spiro Agnew resigns due to charges of income tax evasion, and Gerald Ford is confirmed as Vice President. President Richard Nixon signs the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act into law authorizing the construction of the Alaska Pipeline. The Pioneer 10 sends back the first close-up images of Jupiter. The Endangered Species Act is passed in the United States. And the first handheld cellular phone, the first personal computer, the Bic lighter, and breath savers are invented, and the songs "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree," "We May Never Pass This Way Again," "Behind Closed Doors," "Sunshine on My Shoulders," "Live and Let Die," and "Reelin' in the Years" are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1973 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1973 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1973 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1973 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1973 Kennedy Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1973 Kennedy Half Dollar. Now let's take a look at the 1973 Eisenhower Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1973 Eisenhower Dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1974. In the year 1974, on January 4th, President Nixon cites executive privilege, refusing to surrender 500 tapes and documents subpoenaed by the Senate Watergate Committee. The sitcom Happy Days, about life in the 1950s, premieres on ABC. The 1974 Super Outbreak, largest series of tornadoes in history, occurs in 13 states, leaving over 300 people dead and over 500 people injured. On May 9th, the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee opens formal hearings in the impeachment against President Richard Nixon. The New Age religious cult Heaven's Gate, led by Marshall Applewhite, is founded. The Universal Product Code (UPC) barcode is scanned for the first time to sell a package of Wrigley's chewing gum. On July 27th to 30th, the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee adopts 3 articles of impeachment charging President Richard Nixon with obstruction of justice, refusal to produce materials subpoenaed, and failure to uphold laws. On August 7th, 3 congressional leaders, including Barry Goldwater, urged Nixon to resign, as he lacks the votes to avoid impeachment. President Nixon announces his resignation on August 8th. Effective August 9th, VP Gerald Ford is sworn in as president. President Gerald Ford pardons former President Nixon for any crimes that he may have committed while in office. Nelson Rockefeller is confirmed by the Senate and House as Vice President and is sworn in on December 19th. The restrictions on holding private gold within the U.S. implemented by President Roosevelt in 1933 are removed. And the Rubik's Cube, chicken fingers, Dayquil, Meow Mix, Mobil 1 motor oil, and Sprite Zero Sugar are invented, and the songs Annie's Song, I Honestly Love You, The Door, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, Midnight at the Oasis, Benny and the Jets, You Make Me Feel Brand New, Sideshow, Sundown, Waterloo, and The Air That I Breathe are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1974 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1974 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1974 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1974 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1974 Kennedy Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1974 Kennedy Half Dollar. Now we'll take a look at the 1974 D. Eisenhower Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1974 D. Eisenhower Dollar. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1975. In the year 1975, the United States Atomic Energy Commission is divided between the Energy Research and Development Administration and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake hits the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, injuring 15 people. The construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System begins. The first military operation baby lift of the Vietnam War, Flight C-5A 80218, crashes 27 minutes after takeoff, killing 138 people on board as 176 survive the crash. On April 30th, the Vietnam War ends as communist forces take Saigon, causing mass evacuations of Americans and South Vietnamese. South Vietnam surrenders unconditionally. A violent F4 tornado hits the Omaha metropolitan area, killing 3 and injuring more than 137 people. Universal Pictures releases Steven Spielberg's Jaws, initially bringing in $123.1 million, considered to be the first modern blockbuster. Eastern Airlines Flight 66 crashes in New York City while attempting to land at JFK International Airport due to a microburst, killing 113 people. The bulk carrier Edmund Fitzgerald sinks 15 miles off Whitefish Point, Michigan, losing all 29 crew members on board. Former California Governor Ronald Reagan enters the race for the 1976 Republican presidential nomination, challenging President Ford. The 7.4 magnitude Hawaii earthquake hits the Hawaiian Islands, causing 2 deaths, 20 and 28 injuries, and a tsunami. The digital camera, microcomputer, catalytic converter, bubble yum gum, Famous Amos, Nature Valley, and Lego minifigures are invented. And the songs Rhinestone Cowboy, I Write the Songs, Times of Your Life, Moonlight Feels Right, Love Will Keep Us Together, Shining Star, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, Jive Talkin', Lovin' You, The Hustle, Magic, Sister Golden Hair, I'm Not in Love, Wildfire, Please Mr. Please, That's the Way of the World, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Someone Saved My Life Tonight are released. Now we will take a look at the 1975 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1975-76 S Bicentennial Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 S Bicentennial Washington Quarter proof. Now we will take a look at the 1975-76 D Bicentennial Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 D Bicentennial Kennedy half dollar. Now we'll take a look at the 1975-76 D Bicentennial Eisenhower dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 D Bicentennial Eisenhower dollar. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1976. In the year 1976, about 2,000 students are involved in a racially charged riot at Escambia High School in Pensacola, Florida. 30 students are injured. 2 coal mine explosions claim 26 lives at the Blue Diamond Coal Company, Scotia Mine in Letcher County, Kentucky. Conrail Consolidated Rails Corporation is formed by the U.S. government to take control of 13 major Northeast Class I railroads. Apple Computer Company is formed by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in California. The Yuba City bus disaster, the second worst bus crash in U.S. history, left 28 students and 1 teacher dead. The Teton Dam collapses in southeast Idaho, killing 11 people. From coast to coast, the U.S. celebrates the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The Viking 1 lander successfully lands on Mars, taking the first close-up color photos of the planet's surface, including the famous Face on Mars photo. Jimmy Carter wins the Democratic nomination, and Gerald Ford wins the Republican nomination. Hurricane Belle hits Long Island and southern New England. 12 people are killed, and the storm causes $100 million in damages. The Mississippi River ferry, M.V. George Prince, is struck by a ship while crossing Destrehan, Louisiana to Luling, Louisiana, killing 78 passengers and the crew. In the 1976 presidential election, Jimmy Carter defeats the incumbent President Gerald Ford. And the Apple Company, the Apple I computer, inkjet printer, the Big Gulp, Nespresso, and Stretch Armstrong are invented. And the songs I'd Really Love to See You Tonight, Right Back Where We Started From, Kiss and Say Goodbye, After the Lovin', Get Closer, Afternoon Delight, Still the One, I Like Dreamin', and If You Leave Me Now are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1976 S Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1976 S Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1975-76 S Bicentennial Washington Quarter. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 S Bicentennial Washington Quarter. Now we'll take a look at the 1975-76 Bicentennial Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 bicentennial Kennedy half dollar. Now we'll take a look at the 1975-76 bicentennial Eisenhower dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1975-76 bicentennial Eisenhower dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1977. In the year 1977, Jimmy Carter is sworn in as the 39th president, and Walter Mondale is sworn in as the 42nd vice president. From January 1st to January 31st, the contiguous U.S. average monthly minimum temperature of 12.54 degrees Fahrenheit is the coldest for any month since nationwide records were compiled in 1895. Southern Airways Flight 242, during a flight leg en route to Atlanta, Georgia, from Huntsville, Alabama, is forced to make an emergency landing on a highway. After both engines fail, 63 out of 85 on board and 9 people on the ground are killed. Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater first opens in San Jose, California. The movie Star Wars, directed by George Lucas, is released, known as the year's best movie, rated by Time magazine. The Beverly Hills Supper Club in Southgate, Kentucky, is engulfed in flames, killing 165 people. The New York City blackout of 1977 lasts for 25 hours, resulting in looting and disorder. Flooding in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, caused by massive rainfall, kills over 75 people, causing billions of dollars in damage. The first oil through the Trans-Alaska pipeline system reaches Valdez, Alaska, and U.S. Senate hearings on MKUltra are held. On August 16th, Elvis Presley dies in his home in Graceland at age 42. 75,000 fans attended his funeral. The modern food stamp program begins when the Food Stamp Act of 1977 is enacted. British Airways inaugurates regular London to New York City supersonic Concorde service. Lockheed's secret stealth aircraft, the U.S. F-117A Nighthawk, makes its first flight. And the artificial heart, personal stereo, fiber optic communication, magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, Post-it note, and Chia Pet are invented, and the songs Southern Nights, I Just Want to Be Your Everything, It Was Almost Like a Song, It's Sad to Belong, Best of My Love, Telephone Line, Sir Duke, Hotel California, When I Need You, Easy, I Go Crazy, Staying Alive, Lucille, and Lonely Boy are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1977 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1977 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1977 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1977 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1977 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1977 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will take a look at the 1977 Eisenhower dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1977 Eisenhower dollar. Now we'll cover the history of the year 1978. In the year 1978, the Great Blizzard of 1978 strikes the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, causing 51 deaths in Ohio. The northeastern United States blizzard of 1978 hits the New England region and New York, killing about 100 people, causing $520 million in damage. The first Home Depot opens in Marietta, Georgia. President Jimmy Carter decides to postpone the production of the neutron bomb, a weapon that kills people with radiation, but leaves structures relatively intact. The Senate votes 68 to 32 to turn the Panama Canal over to Panamanian control on December 31, 1999. In the deadliest construction accident in U.S. history, 51 construction workers are killed when a cooling tower under construction collapses at the Pleasance Power Station in Willow Island, West Virginia. Garfield, which eventually becomes the world's most widely syndicated comic strip, makes its premiere. President Jimmy Carter signs a bill that authorizes the minting of the Susan B. Anthony dollar. President Jimmy Carter signs a bill into law that allows home brewing of beer in the United States. John Carpenter's low-budget horror film, Halloween, is released on October 25th. The Southern Crescent passenger train derails at Shipman, Virginia, killing 6 and injuring 60 people. And the Global Positioning System, GPS, Coors Light, Reese's Pieces, Simon Game, and whatchamacallit candy are invented. And the songs Feels So Good, Bluer Than Blue, Sweet Life, Reminiscing, Shadow Dancing, Night Fever, Grease, Baker Street, Can't Smile Without You, Hopelessly Devoted to You, Dust in the Wind, Too Much Heaven, A Little More Love, I Will Survive, Still the Same, and You Needed Me are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1978 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1978 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent proof. Now we'll take a look at the 1978 S. Washington Quarter proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1978 S. Washington Quarter proof. Now we will take a look at the 1978 Kennedy half dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1978 Kennedy half dollar. Now we will take a look at the 1978 D. Eisenhower dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1978 D. Eisenhower dollar. Now we will cover the history of the year 1979. In the year 1979, the United States and the People's Republic of China establish full diplomatic relations. On February 13th, an intense windstorm strikes West Washington, sinking a half-mile section of the Hood Canal Bridge. On March 26th, in a White House ceremony, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin signed the Egyptian-Israeli Peace Treaty. On March 28th, America's most serious nuclear power plant accident at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, occurs when a partial nuclear meltdown begins. A tornado hits Wichita Falls, Texas, killing 42 people, and the Albert Einstein Memorial is unveiled in Washington, D.C. American Airlines Flight 191, a DC-10 in Chicago, crashes during takeoff at O'Hare International Airport, killing 271 people on board and 2 people on the ground, the deadliest aviation accident to have occurred in the U.S. NASA's first orbiting space station, Skylab, begins its return to Earth after being in orbit for 6 years and 2 months. The largest anti-nuclear demonstration to date is held in New York City, where almost 200,000 people attend to protest. President Jimmy Carter signs a law establishing the Department of Education. On November 4th, 3,000 Iranian radicals invade the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and take 90 hostages, 53 of whom are Americans. On November 9th, a nuclear false alarm occurs when NORAD computers detect an alleged massive Soviet nuclear strike. Later, the alert is canceled after data is carefully reviewed. And the Happy Meal, voicemail, Ferrero Rocher, Honey Nut Cheerios, the International Star Registry, Maglite, Ring Pop, and Walkman are invented, and the songs Morning Dance, She Believes in Me, Goodbye Stranger, The Logical Song, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, Tragedy, Sad Eyes, Ring My Bell, What a Fool Believes, Another Brick in the Wall, Rock with You, Escape the Pina Colada Song, Longer, Coward of the County, Rise, Babe, Cruisin', Love is the Answer, and We Are Family are released. Now we'll take a look at the 1979 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1979 S. Lincoln Memorial Cent Proof. Now we will take a look at the 1979 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1979 S. Washington Quarter Proof. Now we will take a look at the 1979 Kennedy Half Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1979 Kennedy Half Dollar. Finally, we'll take a look at the 1979 D. Susan B. Anthony Dollar. Here are the details on the composition, designer, mintage, grading, and inflationary value of the 1979 D. Susan B. Anthony Dollar. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be interesting. For more videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you, keep on collecting, and have a great day.